Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly strain review. This week we got to see the episode entitled Last Rites. And hey, why don't you look at that? It's the episode before the season 1 finale, and I do believe that is airing next week. I'm just checking right now because sometimes they pull some 2 weeks garbage about having to wait an extra week just to see the final episode of the season. Let's see if they're going to do that. Give me a second, guys. Bear with me. Okay, good. They're not doing that. Okay, yeah. The episode before the season finale next week. Wow. It's been I just want to say it's been a great first season of The Strain. Definitely one of the best first seasons of any show I've seen. Definitely an impressive show. I'll definitely continue watching for season 2 next year, which it was renewed quite a while ago now. So yeah, it's cool. And why don't we get right into it? Let's see, there are quite a few places we could start, but why don't we just talk about our present day core group here. This week we got to see the return of Dutch, actually. And, she's the blonde, kind of with the goth makeup and stuff like that. She returned, after F had scolded her the last time she was there, for her involvement with shutting the internet down and hacking into all that and different things like that. And she actually came back and brought something useful, how on TV they can, interrupt all the broadcasts and say this is not a test, like a special announcement or something like that. Or to warn people, or it's just like an urgent news update basically. And she actually had a way to make it so F could actually talk on TV. That'd be broadcasted all around the area, or around the country. I'm not sure how far it reached, but he'd be able to tell people all over about what exactly is going on for at least a minute, or maybe slightly less than a minute, which is very, very important. And I'm sorry if I'm struggling with my reviews here. I'm just kind of getting a little bit tired. But I love talking about the show, but sometimes it's just a task to sit down and talk about it for as long as I do. But so F, he got in there and he started explaining things, but he got into the science of it all, and they were showing pictures of when he was looking at the pilot Redfern's body, but Nora tried to speed him along a little bit to tell people how to kill him and what to do and stuff like that. And he managed to say something about how sunlight kills them, but then they had cut it off. They had stopped it. Whoever was was working behind that. And so it's still good that I got it out there to people though. Because they pointed it out that not a lot of people are necessarily going to be up the slate to see it, but it's better than them doing it in the morning, because obviously more people are going to be in and out and not really necessarily focusing on that. They probably explained it a different way. Like I said, I'm kind of forgetting things right now after my first Bully walkthrough video last night. Then suddenly we hear, wait, hold on. I almost forgot about something. Fett actually went with Dutch to, set up the thing they would use to broadcast it. So they were up on the roof, and, you could tell they were, having a, chemistry with each other. You like how I do this? Anyway, they had, a chemistry with each other, and, Dutch told Fett about her father and, her bad relationship with him and stuff like that. And, what he used to do when he was still alive. And, she also told him about one of her other girlfriends. And then Fett was like, so tell me, men or women? And, and she sarcastically said, or maybe it is true, but she said she likes passionate, self-destructive or whatever relationships. And, he said that's the best kind. She kind of brushed him off, but you can tell there's going to be something between them very soon. There already kind of is. So yeah, I definitely ship Fett and Dutch. I mean, you could tell they got along, and he liked her, from the second she kind of, started working with our group. So yeah, I like that pairing. Hopefully it progresses in a good way. And, I kind of went out of order there, like I usually do, but then, right after F had did his little broadcast, we heard like a loud crash, and, they all ran upstairs, and, basically we seen the reappearance of Gabriel, the rock star with the long, straight black hair, the wig and stuff, fully transformed. We haven't seen him in a while. We seen him, and he was killing Nora's mother, basically. He had his tongue in her. That sounds a little suggestive, or a little off, but you know what I mean, the stinger, or whatever you want to call it. And, that injected into her and killed her, or at least turned her, or, got her in the process of that. And, even Fett went up to, swing at Gabriel, but he actually is getting increased reflexes, like some of the other vampires do, and he ducks, and, F hits him with a chair or like a table, I forget what it was. But, then he eventually, flees. And, Nora is just in complete shock and, complete breakdown, basically, over, of course, seeing her mother tongued or by a vampire. So, stunned by a vampire, bitten by a vampire, whatever you want to say. Which is, really upsetting to see. I mean, the actress who plays Nora did a pretty good job here. It was probably her best performance so far. And, they carried her down there because at the same time, they carried her down to Satrakian's basement because we seen the reappearance of Ekhorst, and he led a small group of vampires into the pawn shop. They had found their little hideout, their little secret location. And, maybe they tracked it, because of the broadcast and things like that. Or maybe they had already found it, I'm not sure. But, it caused Satrakian, F, and the rest of them to flee into the, fortified basement, basically. With all Satrakian's gadgets and stuff like that. And, before we get to what finally happened there, like another big part of the episode is made up of seeing some Abraham Satrakian flashbacks, and we finally got an explanation for that heart in the jar he was keeping, that vampire heart in a jar. And like I said earlier on in the season, that it was probably someone he loves a lot, probably his wife or something, and I was right. But I think it was kind of obvious, so I shouldn't really gloat too much about that. But we finally got a flashback and seeing exactly what happened with that. And really it was sometime after, probably a good 20 or 30 years after he had escaped that Nazi camp. And, he had gotten married. He had his woman, I think her name was Miriam. And, they were in love, and, she had apparently been informed by him about the vampires and all that, so he was going out to, hunt them down, or, he thinks he was looking for the master and different things like that. And the scenes that he went to, like, a well, and, he used a rope to climb down into there. And, these scenes were actually pretty, chilling, really, intense, and, like I said, I've seen a lot of things, so I'm not necessarily scared by any of this, but, I still feel like the, atmosphere of, intensity and the fright, potentially these characters are going through. It's a really, really good tone. And, we see him, going along in the tunnels, under the well, or the, whatever you want to call it. And, we see him, he runs into a couple of vampires, but then all of a sudden, he promised to Miriam, he would be back before sundown, and, she said no later. And, so when he runs into a little group of vampires down in the tunnels, he, all of a sudden, one of them looks up at him, and he has, the master's voice, I think, the master's talking through one of the regular ones. And, he said, Professor, the sun's going down, and, and then he mentions his, wife, or Miriam, and that causes him to, panic, and he starts trying to, go back to the way he came up, but he sees the ropes no longer down there, is pulled up by someone, and you see, E-Course looking up at him. They had tracked him down again, and again, like, indirectly threatens his wife. Like, kind of metaphorically implies what he's gonna do, and so of course the rope's not down there. So E-Course goes off, to presumably go after Miriam if he hadn't already, and Abraham, at this point has no way out, and so he actually has to climb up by the, with his bare hands, when there's not, the rocks are hardly pushed out at all. So it's really difficult, and you see, like, the blood on his fingers and stuff like that from, going so hard at it, trying to get out as fast as he could. But by then, it's, it's quite a while later. And once he finally gets back to their little house, what we see is pretty sad here. It's kind of what we assumed had happened, but still, sad nonetheless. We see his wife come in. She's, fully transformed into a vampire. She has the eyes, the blood, and she also has 2 vampire kids with her, which is because, she had mentioned, her and Abraham had said, once this is all over, we're gonna adopt 2 children. So, it's even more tragically poetic. E-Course had probably set that up. Or she went after children she had liked or something like that. And of course she came back for him because she loves him. We know how those things work, going after the ones they love when they're fully turned. And so we see Abraham, he is forced to decapitate her and the children, of course. But what's kind of twisted is that, he cuts her open and then he pulls out her heart, basically. And that, hence the heart in the jar. And so when Abraham and the rest of them retreat into the basement, and E-Course and the other vampires are trying to break in, he takes a last look at, Miriam's heart in a jar, and he apologizes to her, that he can't be with her anymore, and he's sorry and things like that. And yeah, it's definitely really emotional. I feel really bad for Abraham and all he's been through, and he kind of got angry at Nora for asking him about it earlier, but he had apologized for it earlier in the episode. But yeah, so I like Abraham almost as much as F. I just hope they both last a while. So yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see, and he of course had to leave the jar there, and he actually had like a back way out that led into like another tunnel area, which of course makes sense because he probably figured he'd have to likely get out of there at some point if E-Course or whoever else came after him. So they retreat into this back passage he had, and E-Course finally gets into the basement, and he keeps on calling him by his his code that he had while he was imprisoned at that concentration camp. And he sees the heart in the jar, and he says, oh, Satrakian, or whatever, you have abandoned everything you love, and yet it'll still not be enough. So yeah, that's pretty chilling, and yeah, that was the main parts of that. And so yeah, it definitely feels like an episode leading up to the finale with such them being so close to each other. Before Abraham had gone into the basement, before he had gone into the back tunnel area to escape, him and E-Course had like 1 or 2 little like stares with each other. It was just really, really intense. Okay, and what else did we have going on this week? Again, that was towards the end of the episode, so I apologize for always being out of order with that stuff, but I kind of go down like a mental list I have of characters, and I go from there. And let's see, I know there's a thing with Gus. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, with Eldridge Palmer. I'll get to Gus first, and then I'll get to Palmer to finish it off. Gus, he continues, getting supplies for, killing vampires and surviving, basically. But he actually tracks down that dealer we had met earlier in the season, black guy. Gus tracks him down, and, he forces, he pulls out a gun, forces him to drive to one of his shipping areas, because he wants all the money and, like, anything else he has, to get back at him, basically, before he leaves and starts trying to survive on his own. Which he has been, but you know what I mean. And yeah, basically a guy comes in and he tells him about the shipment is here. He tells the dealer, and so Gus of course gets curious and wants to see what's in the little cargo box. but you know they open it and it turns out that there's like a whole horde of vampires inside there. So my guess is that's probably some kind of system set up by the Master and Ecorst and the rest of them, you know, as a way to spread the vampires in other areas or wherever they would want it. So, you know, of course all the vampires come out, it's nighttime, and you know, Gus and you know, Gus tosses the excuse me. Gus tosses a gun to the black guy, even though, you know, they're kind of enemies. You know, they start shooting the vampires, but of course they're regular bullets, so they don't affect them, you know, for too long, even if they shoot them in the head. And of course, you know, the black guy doesn't recognize the situation they're in, so he starts trying to shoot at Gus too. Yeah, big mistake, man. You know how people can be sometimes on the show. And so they start shooting at each other while the vampires are going after them. But then we finally see the vampire SWAT team. I believe I heard his name is Mr. Quinlan from the comic books or the novels. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing the name here, but we haven't heard his name on the show, spoken on the show yet. But you know, the vampire SWAT team, they're not like a SWAT team, but they're kind of dressed like it. You know, like riot gear and, you know, different body armor and stuff like that. You know, he and his little group shows up, and you know, they take out the vampires, and they use like the special gun or weapon to bring them all down at once, which is really cool. And then they put like a bag over Gus's head and take, you know, the guy orders, you know, his followers to take Gus, and they put him in a car, and then they drive off, then leaving the black guy behind. So yeah, it's really thrilling to see, you know, his team again. I have I've you know, heard some minor spoilers here and there about, you know, from the books about who he's supposed to be, but we don't know who he is on the show yet. And what do they want with Gus, really? I don't know anything about that part. So it's going to be really interesting to find out more about that. Hopefully we get to see Gus and his interactions for the finale, see what they do. Should be really interesting. There's that. And I don't think I missed anything else besides the Eldritch Palmer thing. You know, he had been, you know, very sick and he's very close to dying. And, you know, we seen him, he still was asking Ecorst about his deal with the Master. You know, of course the Master is probably going to give him, you know, turn him into a vampire like Ecorst, put him on that higher ranking, that higher council of vampires with more power to him like Ecorst. And I also think Master probably gave that power to Kelly Goodweather's ex-wife as well. You know, Ephraim Goodweather's ex-wife. You know, I think he did that to her too. And the Master finally arrives to Eldridge, and he cuts his own finger, and then he drifts the white blood, I guess, into Eldridge's mouth, and that basically turns him. And so when the black guy, I forget his name, his little assistant that had helped Fett and Dutch the previous week without Eldridge knowing, he comes out and he's expecting Eldridge to still be lying on the bed, sickly and near death and stuff. But we see Eldridge, you know, he's outside standing in the ring with his arms spread out and laughing like a, you know, psychopath. So yeah, the guy probably knows more than ever that something's really wrong now. So yeah, he's probably, you know, on the same platform as Satrakian and Ecorst now. Eldridge is. You know, I'm not sure if he's quite as skilled, but he has like that same gift, you know, that the Master had given him. So that's gonna be interesting to see what he does with that power. You know, I'm sure he'll be much more menacing now, so we'll see how that goes. And that's pretty much everything I want to talk about for this video, for this episode, Last Rites. And yeah, one more episode left, guys, of the season 1 of The Strain. Great season so far, great show, one of my favorites. So yeah, I'll definitely catch you guys next week to review the season 1 finale. I'll catch you guys for season 2 as well, you know, of course. And next video you'll probably see from me before the finale review next week will probably be quite a few more Bully playthrough videos for the Let's Play. So yeah, I'll catch you guys next time, and peace.